Hello everyone, today's video is all about scrip dividends. What are they? What does it mean for your portfolio, for your investments, and how are they taxed? So basically, since the start of the pandemic, a lot of companies have ceased paying dividends. So no cash dividends because of obvious liquidity issues that they face because of the COVID-19 uncertainties. That has started to change a bit more the last few months. More and more companies are starting to pick up their dividends. But one thing that we're seeing a lot more of in this country is companies issuing what are known as scrip dividends. Now, basically, scrip dividends have not historically been popular in the UK. They're more well known with Asian stocks. But essentially what they are is, rather than having cash paid out as dividends, the companies issue you with more shares. So you get shares in the company in lieu of cash dividends. So what are the characteristics of these? Well, typically a scrip dividend is exempt from stamp duty and dealing charges. So normally when you buy shares, you actually pay 0.5% stamp duty. Don't get confused with stamp duty land tax, which is purely a property tax. Stamp duty, or to give it its full name, stamp duty reserve tax, is payable when you buy shares, stamp on a document, 0.5%. Now, that is not applicable when you are acquiring these scrip dividends, when you are acquiring new shares that you were given by the issuing company. So no stamp duty on those. So basically what happens is that on the dividend payment date, the company will allot new shares to you in lieu of you receiving a cash dividend. So the question is, should you take cash or take the scrip dividend? Because often there's a choice. You say you can have the cash or take the scrip issue. In times of uncertainty, liquidity, the company would rather you take the shares rather than the cash. And what they tend to do, it's not a like for like. So the value of one is not the same as the other. It's often you get less cash dividend if you choose the actual cash route than you would in the value of the stock. So you get more in absolute terms if you took the extra shares in lieu of the cash dividend. But basically, if the company is continuing to do well and it's balanced, and you don't think it's got any real long-term problems, then yes, reinvesting these dividends will probably benefit you more than taking the cash. But if the company's struggling, then maybe taking the cash is the way to go. If you don't think there's going to be any much hope in the future. If there was, say, Debenhams were offering scrip or cash, if with hindsight a few months ago, yes, you'd have said, let's take the cash. So an example then, if a shareholder has 1,000 shares and the dividend per share is £20 per share declared by the company, and the share price is £800, then the shareholder would receive 25 shares under the scrip dividend scheme. So 1,000 shares times by £20 dividend per share divided by the share price. That's the number of shares that they would get. So not cash, number of shares. Now, in terms of how these things are taxed, scrip dividends are treated as taxable income in the normal way that cash dividends are. So it's actually what we call it in the tax world a dry tax charge, meaning potential tax bill without the cash to pay for it, because you are not receiving actual cash. So in normal terms, you get cash and a percentage of it would go to the tax man, but you still got hopefully most of it left to go in your back pocket. But with the scrip dividends, of course, this is not a liquid transaction. You're just acquiring extra shares, but it is taxable. Thankfully, the dividend tax rate in the UK is low. So remember that you get the first £2,000 a year of dividend income absolutely tax-free, 0% tax. Then the balance of that, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, remember dividend is taxed as the top slice, so it adds on to your salary and other income. But if you're still in the basic rate band, even when you factor in your new scrip dividends, 7.5% tax, which is still pretty good. And then if you are a higher rate taxpayer, the tax rate on these dividends jumps up to 33%. So scrip dividends, just like a cash dividend, would be subject to income tax. So what's the difference between a scrip dividend and the so-called dividend reinvestment plan? So scrip versus drip. So the dividend reinvestment plan is basically where you have your cash dividend. The cash dividend is paid, but you then reinvest it back in the company straight away by acquiring extra shares. So you think, well, on the face of it, isn't it exactly the same thing? You are ending up with no cash in your back pocket, but instead you've acquired more shares in the company. So the difference between scrip and drip is that the scrip dividends, the dividend is at a fixed rate. So you know before they declare this dividend, where they say, look, we're going to give you a choice, scrip or cash, you know exactly how much new shares you're going to get. How much is that dividend worth? How much in exchange for the new shares? That is fixed, predetermined in advance. With the dividend reinvestment program, with the DRIP, what tends to happen is that all those cash dividends, before they land in the investor's pocket, are pooled by the brokers, who then go into the marketplace and buy shares on a certain date. So it's all market driven. It's what is the share price of the company at the date that your dividends are reinvested. So that there's an important difference between the scrip and the drip. The scrip, you get absolute certainty in terms of how many extra shares you're getting. The drip, it all depends on share price on the day when they are paid out in terms of the cash dividend. Then it's converted to buying new shares. But exactly the same from a tax point of view. Either the scrip dividend or the drip dividend would be taxed as a cash dividend. So that's just an overview of scrip dividends, seeing as how they are becoming more popular now in the UK since the pandemic. Basically, it's just taking shares in the paying company as an alternative to cash. So it is subject to tax, but like I said, tax rates on dividends are fairly low in the UK, and for long-term portfolio growth, not a bad idea to just keep reinvesting these dividends. Yes, if you're later on in life of a certain age and you have a different investment focus and you really are wanting cash dividends as a supplement to your income, on top of a pension or whatever your situation is, but you rely on cash dividend paying entities, then you're not going to get that with a scrip dividend. And the cash alternative, like I said, might not be as good, to encourage you to take the reinvested dividends rather than the cash. But do have a think about those. So expect to see more of these in the UK. There's been quite a few in the last quarter particularly, but do have a look at scrip dividends. All right, if you like this video, which is part of the investment series, do click here to subscribe, and I will see you soon.